This, I want to introduce our next panel, which is Taking Care of Business.
Where's the song?
Taking Care of Business, and that is going to be led by a moderator, which is Richard Berman. He is the Dean of the Patel College of Global Sustainability.
We don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it?
No,
Okay.
I just jump in.
I'll let him jump in. But this panel is going to really talk about what kind of skills, what do employers require of the talent so that they can maintain competitive edge. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. You have been an amazing audience sitting here from the beginning through all this. And I know you're looking down because you paced yourself to noon for lunch and you're wondering what we're doing starting up here. But we're going to try to be sensitive, although my buddy Newton always tries to put, 6 pounds of stuff in a 1 pound container here, having all this talent. So we've decided as a group, sort of, that what we would do in respect of your time, your interest, and being here is I'm not going to introduce any of the wonderful speakers here for 2 reasons. One is it's in your book on page 20, and second of all, it makes me look small compared to all of them. So we're going to skip that. We're just going to go directly to 1 or 2 questions of them and then to the audience because you've been sitting and not had a chance to make this a 2-way exchange. And then we're going to go to lunch and we'll be right on time and it'll seem like a miracle. So one of the things that we say often when we come to events like this is so wonderful. It's important to talk about the middle class. It's important to have these discussions. But what we end up doing often is 2 things. One is we have great suggestions for everybody but ourselves to make the world better. It's always, if you ask the kids, what would you like to do today to make it better? If Tommy will just stop doing this, or et cetera. So this is not about somebody else. And number 2 is we want to leave here with something specific. The best thing that could happen is we're all together. The worst thing is that we all leave and we leave in a vacuum. So I decided to change the questions to surprise my panel. So I won't be invited again, but I had a good one-day event. And that is to see if you can think of something very specific that as business with OIC we can do together. We talked about partnerships, but now let's talk about specifics that business and OIC can do to make a difference and to build and sustain the middle class. So I guess, Penny, you're sitting right here at the front. You take the first bullet. Welcome.
I thought maybe it was just going to be girl power first. So.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. So I think that, if I had to bring it to one word, and I know you didn't ask me to do that, but it's about engagement. When you think about it, you've heard from the colleges and you're going to hear from other panelists that we have concerted efforts in our communities to make sure that we're looking at our environment. What are the industries that are most conducive to grow here? And that's not by size, that's by what our natural resources and our talent resources will support. We have education task force, whether it's the Talent Development Network or others. In Broward, we have something similar. In Palm Beach, something similar, to say, how do we match the talent, the degree programs, the undergraduate level education to put the right talent force forward? And so what I would say the OIC has to be is engaged in that activity. As an employer, I have responsibility for 8 counties in the Southeast, but I participate actively as a member of the Executive Committee of the Beacon Council. I'm the current chair of the Alliance, and I'm a member of the Business Development Board of Palm Beaches because I believe it's vitally important for our community to grow by being invested and engaged. And that's what I would ask you to do. Get engaged.
And you're the co-chair of the One Community, One Goal.
I'm the co-chair of One Community, One Goal. Girl power, Maria Alonso and I.
You and
with the
Maria
mayor.
Alonso.
Yeah.
Going down the line?
Yeah,
Well,
go
thank you.
ahead.
Well, thanks for that. Listen, there's a role for everybody, and everybody has a role. And as we look at all of this, and all of us, we can get engaged, I think of a couple things. If I think about the opportunities and responsibilities of our organization, the Beacon Council, as an economic development organization, our primary role is how do we grow employment? How do we grow the economic base? So not talking about shifting the deck chairs around. I'm talking about how do we create new, bring it in, expand it. And that creates new jobs, and that creates new opportunities. Now there's a quantifiable part of that, but there's also a qualifiable, and that is the types of jobs that we usually describe as above county average wage. And the idea is that those ideas are the types of jobs that people can actually sustain themselves on, grow a family on, thrive on, or at the very least have career paths associated with them where they can grow into those types of careers that are very important. Because I know whenever I was a very young man, my father used to look at me and nod his head and say, boy, you know, you want to start at the top. You always want to start at the top. And I know there are a lot of kids out there that all want to start at the top, but, you know, life, you know, set me straight, and I got an entry-level job, and I worked my way up. And I think those are things that are important as well. So our role in this is really thinking about how do we bring new opportunities here? How do we work with the current companies that we have to help them expand and create those types of opportunities? And then also, what do we look at of how that we can grow that next generation of ingenuity here in South Florida and Miami-Dade? So there are a lot of companies that, you know, that weren't recruited here. Nobody recruited Ryder or Perry Ellis or World Fuels or Burger King. They all grew up here. And that's got to be part of the portfolio as I look at it, is this area of entrepreneurism. So that's one as a primary economic development organization. Now the other part has been brought up several times this morning, is One Community, One Goal. And that's our platform that really brings together a larger group of people, group of organizations, chambers, academia, the corporate world, government, to really think about those other things that can either set a foundation and really address the things that can either enable or inhibit economic growth. And it's things like the business climate, it's infrastructure, it's entrepreneurism, it's the leadership that's required, it's marketing, telling our great stories, it's the targeted industries, and it's the skills development. All of those things come together to put together a framework and a foundation for us to be able to thrive. So those things exist. And so I'll echo what Penny said, get involved in them. We don't have to create a lot of new things. And I think that's what Rick Bisley was talking about. He saw what was going on, and let's reinforce those and continue to take them. And if we need to course correct, let's course correct.
Thanks, Larry. My name is James Donnelly. I'm the founder and CEO of the Castle Group, and we're a large employer in South Florida. We have approximately 1,200 employees, and we hire about 25 people a month, or we try to, and it's a problem. And so I think there's a great connection between what OIC is trying to do in the middle class and what we're trying to do as employers is to put people in the middle class. I wear a second hat, though. In Broward County, I'm the chair of the Broward Workshop, and it's 100 business leaders who exist to facilitate solutions to Broward's biggest problems. And every year we go away and we have a retreat and we say, what are Broward's biggest problems? And last year, one of the top 3 was a workforce skills gap. And so we struck a task force and said, what are we going to do about it? Well, first we had to find out what the problem was, and we did some research. And then we came up with some solutions and worked hand in hand, and still are, with many of the community partners here at the table. So what did we find? Well, we found that there was absolutely a gap. There was a hard skills gap, that the technology and other skills weren't there, and we needed to deal with our great post-secondary and public schools to make sure that those skills existed. And an even bigger one, which was spoken about in the prior panel, was soft skills, and how do we get people ready to work and enter the middle class. So we put together teams to solve this problem. And let me just highlight some very specific things that we did. Number one, we found out from CEOs that, we found out from educators that one of the best ways to solve soft skills is to put people in a workforce environment early. It's called internships. Well, how do we get internships? Well, we get employers to step up and have them. So we talked to the CEOs, and what did they say? We don't know how to do it. So we said, well, let's figure that out. And Broward College, David Armstrong and his team, Mildred Coyne, they came up with a toolkit on how to give it to the HR director. This is how you can do a internship program. And it was called The Edge, and it's available on their website. And then we said, well, how do we match all these students that want internships and all the employers? And so CareerSource stepped up, Mason Jackson, and they created a portal that's just launched called browardintern.com. And we're encouraging all the schools and students to go there and sign up, and all the employers to go and say, this is what we need, so that we can match them together. And so I don't take too much time. It's so specific on how we think we can take the first few steps in getting people ready for employment. And once they're in employment, I can tell you employers want their employees to be in the middle class. So I think we can work with OIC on all of those steps. Thank you.
Great. Love the specifics.
For those of you, I'm Jim Allen, I'm CEO of Seminole Gaming and chairman of Hardrock International. I guess a couple thoughts. How many people have a business card in the room? How many people have given out more than 5? 10? 20? So the first thing I would say is there's a lot of business that we can talk about amongst ourselves, you know, and many times we lose sight of that, because my guess would be that if you had the initiative to come here, to learn, to experience, to network, there could be some great opportunities within the room itself. In my story this morning, the one thing I left out was when I started in the casino industry in 1979, I actually started as a cook at $6.11 an hour, okay? So there is opportunity, and it takes time. But unfortunately, a lot of us have been to many conferences like this, and there's a lot of talk, and many times not a lot of results. So we're going to try to break the trend. I will commit on behalf of Hardrock International and Seminole Gaming that in this room, within the next 90 days, so we'll have to get with your group, the organizers, we will have all of our buyers from purchasing, we'll have our human resources people here, we'll have our gaming licensing people here, and we will truly network. Because then you can talk to the individuals that are making the decision of who they're hiring, or where we need help, or where there is an opportunity to potentially provide procurement opportunities. How many people follow baseball? Do you know if you're a great baseball player, you fail 70% of the time? You have to keep swinging the bat. One of the great things I can tell you is that when I met the tribe back in late 2000, the amount of disbursements that were directly or indirectly occurring with tribal members was less than 1%. That number today is over 36%. And that number approaches $40 million on an annual basis. So when President Reagan signed IGRA, it was the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and it was for the advancement to enhance the lifestyle of Native Americans in the United States by respecting their sovereignty and allowing them the opportunity to conduct gaming on their sovereign lands. So we have a very unique environment, because obviously there's a lot of people here that would probably love the opportunity to meet people from the tribe or from our procurement or licensing or employment departments. But to be candid with you, we also are trying to advance the careers and the lifestyle of our tribal members. So we will extend an opportunity. We'll work with the leadership of your group. We'll provide it for free. We'll provide food and refreshments. And let's see if we can get some real networking going on with the people that are truly involved on a daily basis. And the only other thing I'll say is that I think our employment rate now is a little less than 12,000 here in the state of Florida, specifically with Seminole Gaming. And our turnover on an annual basis runs between 19 and 24%. So, and that's just because people leave. They, unfortunately, it doesn't work out. So there's always opportunities. There's always opportunities for employment. And obviously, we have procurement in a lot of amazing areas. So I always say, if you're in the upholstery business, come see us, because there's a lot of furniture to be reupholstered on a regular basis.
That is terrific. Is that, again?
That's specific.
Okay, so let me come right back up the group. And since we have the bar now raised,
Sorry, panel members.
I love this.
That's
This
just
is
lunch.
this
That's
is an
just lunch.
auctioneer's
That's not the bar,
delight,
yeah.
right? So Jim, you hire a lot of people
Yes.
and work on this. And one of the difficulties we have, and I've been in higher education and for all types of people, is even when we start talking about internships and others, some of the others really seem to get there first or be a little better prepared, et cetera. Is there a way that in addition to this, and you've had to work through this, I know, as well, that working with OIC, we can help get our kids some sort of competitive advantage, being a little better prepared, the better. And so what I was looking for was a way that OIC could work with you, given your experience now with the tribe and others, because you've been in this field in a broad sense, that can help our kids and our people that we're all in the room for, which are not the kids coming out necessarily of some of these great colleges that you saw at the table. Is there some way, something that we're missing that we could make that work a little bit better?
Yeah, I think the hospitality industry in general always has the challenge that we are 24/7. So, when most people are off, we are working. Our busiest period is from Friday evening until Sunday evening, and most people would certainly love to spend time with their families during that period. I think when you focus on holidays and all the times when people come together, that's when we are the busiest. So, finding that unique individual or that talent that aspires to still, work in an environment like that doesn't have the 9-to-5 mentality. And there's nothing wrong with 9-to-5 mentality, but unfortunately we're busiest at night, we're busiest at weekends. So I think as we continue to educate people in general of our industry, that would be point number one. I think point number two is one of the great things about the industry is it's extremely diverse. I mean, if you think about all the different jobs, whether it's the upholstery maker or a dealer or a cook or a bartender or accounting or technology, I'm sure most people last night were hopefully home with their families. But at 8:30, 9:30 at night, I'm dealing with somebody trying to hack into our system, And thank God that, we have an amazing technology team here that we caught it and nothing, created a problem. So there's so many different areas in our industry that can hopefully create an attraction to give people an opportunity. And you don't necessarily need the big, huge job, How many people have had a heart attack? How many people have had 2? Okay, so this job comes with a lot of stress. There's nothing wrong with being, as we said earlier in opening comments, middle class, and there's great benefits, and I think those things of more communication awareness are important.
Great. Newton, ball's in your court on this one. Okay, let me come back to Penny again, because you're in the health field and there's a lot of things, and we have women power, girl power. If you wanted to pick a specific area to work with OIC, health, women, what would it be?
Well, I think there's a great opportunity to come together, to understand what those jobs are. But one of the questions that you sent out in advance that I think needs to be addressed, whether we get to it or not, is this notion that employers are worried about investing in an employee's development because the next generation tends to move around. And so why would I spend money to have somebody move on? And I will tell you that what we all can do is invest in collaborative industry-specific things to make sure we all have a ready workforce in the industry that we're in, and we make sure that we're doing that in a collaborative way. So whether it's supporting things like Talent Development Network or 6 Pillars efforts, or whether it's supporting jobs programs, jobs training programs for an industry. So we make sure that there's 200 annual nursing scholarships across Florida, and we funded it into perpetuity. Because we have a shortage, and we're always going to have a shortage, and we've got to go after that. We funded getting individuals from the clinical site back into education to teach, because the student-teacher ratio is 12 to 1, not big lecture halls, 200, 300 to 1. And so if you don't get the instructors in there, you got a bottleneck and you can't create the capacity. Now, not every nurse that I support in those 200 comes to work for us, but by gosh, they're helping the whole industry. And so we've all got to figure out ways that maybe I don't fund the tuition for that one person who 2 years from now is going to work for somebody else, but by gosh, I better fund the industry or the industry will fail, and it's whatever industry that is. So if we can help figure out how we match those for OIC and some of what we're doing, let's go figure out how we do that matching, because you've still got to invest in the development of the workforce.
I'd like to.
Go ahead, jump in, panel.
I'd like to follow up on Penny's comment, because I think it's critical that we make sure our partners in education in South Florida are teaching the skills that the employers want. And I'm in the real estate property management business. There was no property management program in any of the programs in South Florida. So I went to NSU and I said, look, I want you to do this. Years ago, you didn't tell a post-secondary educational institution what to educate. You'd get thrown out. It's a new world. They will now listen and are hungry to adjust their education to what we need as employers. They did happen to ask me to sponsor the program, which we did. So South Florida now has its first property management program. But to Penny's point, even though our company sponsored it, we have no idea where they're going to come to work for us. But there's going to now be an industry in this area, and it's the same for marine, and it's the same for technology, and the same for gaming and hospitality. So I think employers in the room, we need to go out and make sure that we're doing our part in getting the focus of education on what we need, and that obviously will tie in to the rest. But I want to answer your specific question on OIC. I didn't know OIC existed 24 months ago, and I'm a big employer. That's not good. I think what we could do for OIC is identify 25 employers in South Florida who we had a specific relationship that we first went to OIC and said, okay, these are our needs, let's connect. I think if we do that, we can employ a lot more people that you're helping.
Jump in on this if I could.
That is the type of specific that will make a difference for the population in this area. And so thank you very much. Newton, you got that one too. You got two so far. Kay.
Listen, on from an economic development point of view of recruiting, expanding companies, the number one issue that I hear, head and shoulders above anything else, is does your region have the skills, the talent that I need to run and grow my business? Yesteryear, 25 years ago, the question was how much are utilities, how much is rent, how much is land, et cetera. Those days are long gone. Do you have the talent? So to attract and retain employers of today, you have to have the skills. That is number one. So specifically working with Newton and OIC, it's our talent development network, which has been very well described, the Broward version, and we have one. It's been mentioned. You've got to have the students, and you've got to have critical mass, and you've got to have the companies. You've got to have critical mass to make it work. But I want to mention that also, the MacArthur Foundation says that 65% of school children today will be in jobs that don't exist today. 65% of school children today will be in jobs that don't exist today. So where are those jobs going to come from? Exactly. Ponway knows I'm about to point her out. Well, they're going to come from existing companies that are driving innovation, that keep up with the times and keep up in front of the times. They're going to be there. They're going to also be smart entrepreneurs. They're going to be people that create the next industries. And it's groups like a lot of the accelerators and the incubators that are helping with this. And Ponway Group, that Ecotech is a big part of this. But I also wanted to just bring into something that is so important, I think, to us as a nation and here in South Florida, and that is that we're making sure that we're connecting everyone in every community to the prosperity that we're experiencing. Really looking at the urban areas. And a lot of people think that it really is just the big business that is driving that, and it's not true. What Ponway Gibson has done with Ecotech and building up an incubator that's bringing back manufacturing, that's coming up with new technologies and growing them, and doing it in Liberty City is absolutely phenomenal and a testament to what can be done with a little bit of vision, and I guarantee you very few resources, but actually building and bringing these things back. And we have to be thinking about the connectivity of the urban areas with the prosperity that we have. We have to be doing it as a forethought, not an afterthought, not a marginal. And if we do that and we get that connection with that forethought, we're going to build up these communities that are going to be very resilient communities. And that's what overall we want, because that resiliency is what's going to drive all the growth. So extremely important that we continue to do this on the forefront. The other piece of that with the urban communities as well is building up the infrastructure. We have a lot of people have said, why can't my communities benefit from some of this? Well, a lot of it, they don't have fiber. They don't have fiber optic cable in there. And so either for the educational opportunities that it's bringing for training the skilled workforce, they don't have the access, a lot of these communities, to be able to build it. So we've got to be able to address that and address it in a very direct way, and I think we got to get extremely aggressive about it.
Speaking of infrastructure, one of the things that we hear when we talk about employers that want to come here is they look at particular areas where we have the ability to grow, where we have the land, but we don't have the infrastructure in place to support the business. We, as the domestic businesses, have to demand that infrastructure for ourselves so that it's there when the other ones come to look, when the bigger employers want to look. So we have to be, again, engaged. So if you think transportation is an issue in the community you're in, go get involved in a transportation committee. If you think education is an issue, get on an education committee. If you think it's about affordable housing, there are affordable housing organizations. Get to 6 pillars, get to one community, one goal. If you're not engaged, we can't solve the problem that's going to help us grow domestically and then attract the other ones in that'll make us grow even faster. But we've got to demand it for ourselves.
And Penny, I'd like to expand on that. At the Broward Workshop, we're a business community. We're not a pro-tax group. And we're very much in favor of these 2 half-penny sales taxes in Broward County, because it's one thing to make great jobs. You have to get to the jobs.
Yep.
And then the second question is, where are they going to live? Affordable housing isn't going to be close to the job. It's going to be away from the job, and they have to get to the job. So I think between infrastructure and transportation, we need to get a revenue source here in Broward County so that we can have all of that. It's going to help economic development and help us employ more people.
Let me divert from the panel for just a couple minutes to take some questions from the house. House lights up. You could pull that off, Jim. I can't say that. Nothing happens when I do it. But,
What do you want to do? I'm sorry.
no,
Pull
I'm
that.
teasing.
House lights?
Just
House
plain.
lights up. They always say that when they go
Okay.
down to the crowd. So
We're at the
wanted-
encore now.
Hi,
Right.
my name is Beatrice Louis Saint. I'm the president of the Florida State Minority Supply Development Council. We help minority businesses to grow, and it was great to hear the CEO of the Seminole tribe say that there's going to be a focus on helping minority businesses to do business with the tribe, and we'd like to help you with the activities both here in South Florida as well as in Tampa. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And a long-term member of the Miami-Dade College Foundation. Thank you.
Ho ho. Okay.
I'm here.
Is there somebody here with a mic?
Yeah, I'm
There's a
here.
mic right there.
Okay, first
Line
of all,
up behind the mics. I think that's going to be easier than me trying to find you.
I want to say to you, Jim, thank you so much for, taking that step of faith, I call it, to challenge the organization, OIC, to bring some type of resolution to the purpose of this summit by committing to 90 days, you said, to host something here. What I would recommend is that you consider looking at, to accomplish your goal, is to look at some PTA association, getting involved, the parents, if you will, of some strong organization, small and big business owners, the entertainment sector, faith community to help foster the idea that you've put forth before us. But I really commend you for making that commitment.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Well, while he's trying to fix his mic, let's go right over to her.
The voice of God.
Now you know how I feel all the time, right?
Yes.
My question is, we hear talk from time to time about a regional perspective, but my practical experience has been that's not really as effective as it needs to be. You got Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County, and I just think that we could work together better regionally. You talk about affordable housing, transportation. The line between Dade County and Broward County and Palm Beach County, it's not a wall. It's not the Chinese wall. And I think we need to do better at that. I'd like to hear about that.
Amen.
And I think that was something that we noticed. I must give Newton and lawyer counsel Allen that perception as we moved from just being Broward County and now sort of seeing as one with Broward, Dade, and I'd love you to come up to Palm Beach County as well. So I think it's important. Huh? Got it. That's one for you to do. 2 for Newton, 1 for you. Next.
Hello, Cindy Ehrenberg-Seltzer, President of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. I first want to commend you for bringing up the issue of affordable housing or workforce housing. We're trying to figure out what the word is that won't scare people away, but it is important to note that people doing some of these entry-level jobs need to live in reasonable proximity of where it is they're working. I also was wondering if you could address bringing some of that training and internship opportunity down to the high school level. One of the things that we try to do at the Children's Services Council is provide middle and high school students especially, but even as young as elementary, with a vision of where they can go so that it makes school more meaningful and important to them and keep them engaged. So I wonder if you could address that idea.
Just one thing that I want to mention, we need to think in our school systems, and I know it's tradition and it's been going on this way for a very, very long time, that summer is summer. But if you look at the industries where we have a lot of opportunity and potentially some internship/seasonal workers, it's not necessarily during the summer. And so we're going to have to adjust our expectations of how well we can place our students into these learning opportunities when the learning opportunities happen, not just because it's June, July, or August.
Yeah, and I would say, first of all, we had 2 high school students from the Broward County schools last summer, and their supervisor came in at the end of their 6-week term, and they said, how are they doing? They said, we're doing great. We just treated them like every other teammate we had, and we extended them right through that to their last day before they went to school. That's how good they were. So I think that's a big opportunity. But the other thing I think I'd like to point out, and it's relevant to everything we're talking about here, is I think part of the problem we have in employment in South Florida, probably the country, is parents. Parents have certain expectations about what their kids should be. There are so many amazing, high-paying jobs out there that don't necessarily have to have a college degree. There's nothing wrong with a college degree. It's fantastic. But I can tell you that there's so many students out there that may not be the greatest students, but there's unbelievably talented people, whether it's in a trade. There's 100,000 open welding positions in the country right now that pay incredible salaries. So I think we have to be careful as parents that we don't buttonhole our kids that they have to be X or Y. There's so many things that we can do, and Bob was up here with the technical schools in Broward County. I think that's an opportunity that we shouldn't overlook for our kids.
And if I could just issue a challenge to all the employers in the room, the Children's Services Council for 10 years has been funding through CareerSource summer work opportunities. We now also have year-round opportunities through a federal grant that we're doing in partnership. But if the businesses would step up and share the cost of funding the students, we could double or triple the number of students that are served. So you issued a challenge to Newton, and I want to throw it back at the business community.
I would just like to add to your comments, and certainly, education is always important. But when we were awarded the opportunity to offer table games, we opened our own dealer schools here in South Florida, and the average toke rate on the low side is about $22 an hour, and on the high side about $44 an hour. So this is an individual that needs to pass a background check that then will go anywhere from 10 to 14 weeks of school, which we actually provide for free, and then they can step in and be a dealer. And frankly, our casinos, thank God, touch wood, are very, very busy. And, in some of the busiest casinos in the country, making anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 a year with benefits. So, education is very important, but just because you don't have that, famous degree, that doesn't mean there are not opportunities, here in our organization and frankly in industry in whole. Slot technicians, there's so many jobs that are maybe classified more as trade jobs, but frankly the benefits and the opportunity is tremendous.
Yeah, our broker community, our telesales group, our service group, none of those require college education. They're entry-level, positions that lead to great pathways and pretty high remuneration.
What's also interesting, we're sitting in the room and we're talking, you're in this great facility and we're talking about dealers, we're talking about all sorts of jobs. I think one of the comments that came up earlier was, I think it's important in a lot of our communities to get this sort of knowledge or into the high schools, because especially in our high schools where we're seeing a lot of students not graduating or going nowhere after, I don't think they have the vision that there's really hope, that there really are these jobs out there. I think we've sort of gone on this binge about you either go to college or you're sort of falling off the wagon here. So some of the programs to bring sort of this realization into the high schools, I think is really important. And the other point, I think, along with that is this entrepreneurship. We always, and I've been part of accelerators and startups, and I teach it, so it's sort of a living, but it's always been at the college level, and it's always been sort of at the better places, and because there's more tech, more business around. But there are now a couple experiments around the country about community-based startups and entrepreneurship, where you really go to people without degrees in a community, usually underserved, et cetera, and have them develop their ideas to businesses. And maybe some of those won't grow to millions and billions, but they'll grow to jobs and et cetera. So sometimes we sort of think this is for this group and this is for another group, and both of you have emphasized the entrepreneur, the new jobs, some of the creativity, and I think we can do that. And I think it's in all communities.
I think that the one thing I would add is, at least in our industry, is to instill pride in a lot of these jobs.
Yep.
And I always say, one of the most important things of any hotel is the front door staff, right? If you're in New York and you're a doorman, or a bellman, that's like a great job. People are just proud to be that, and we continue to try to instill pride in so many of these positions, because believe me, it's not just as simple as opening the door. It's having knowledge of show tickets, whether it be, just who's involved, who's around. Those things really matter. And make no mistake, a great door person, they can make a lot of money in tips, okay?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with being a door person. There's nothing wrong with being in housekeeping or in culinary or many of these departments that sometimes people try to put in categories. Well, that's not quite as good. Believe me, we need these people. We need people to take pride. And most importantly, we need to give them respect in these type jobs because they're incredibly important.
Next question.
My name is Maxine Keeman, and I'm the president of Touch Consulting, and it is not a massage parlor. It's the high-touch part of our high-tech world. and I teach soft skills and professionalism, and I'm the author of the Soft Skills Revolution. Right now, I am having the best time teaching people who are coming either back into the work field or are starting out in the fields of home health care, truck driving, hospitality, and possibly customer service. I'm teaching through a program in Palm Beach, hope we can get it here. The people in the classes are amazing, and some of them would like to have a further career track. They would like to be nurses. So I was just wondering, I heard you say there are 200 scholarships. Would it apply to Palm Beach as well?
Oh, absolutely. The 200 scholarships are spread across the entire state. Every institution of higher education that's accredited nursing program has funds in an endowment to take care of those scholarships. So we don't select the scholars, the institutions select the scholars.
Which institutions?
Any accredited nursing school in the state, every one of them
Okay.
has a Florida Blue, it was called Generation RN scholarships.
That's fantastic. And I think you all are doing a great job. Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Is there somebody with a mic?
Good afternoon. My name is Shireen Hampton, and I wanted to address the affordable housing piece as it relates to individuals that are working with returning citizens coming out of prison. And my question is, because I do a lot of, pardon my voice, because I do a lot of referring as it relates to affordable housing, what can we do to bridge that actual gap and this opportunity that's about to come up in about 90 days? If we could, I would make a suggestion, if we could have a panel of these returning citizens come to this event and begin to talk about that actual gap upon release. So that's one of my biggest concerns as it relates to, housing being one of, South Florida's reentry coordinator community liaison and actually going into the prisons, because a lot of times this affordable housing piece is very, very serious, and everyone seems to ignore it through the Department of Corrections, but I'm the one that get that phone call after 6 o'clock in the evening, Ms. Hampton, we have nowhere to go. So if we can, address that a little bit, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone want to take a shot at that?
I think that's a whole nother panel, and no, a very, very, very serious issue. I don't make light of it at all, but it's certainly not an area I have expertise in.
There's a panel coming up this afternoon that will address that.
I was going to say, you do have content later in the day, if I read the program right, that will help with that a bit.
Okay, so I think we'll give the panel each one last shot. If there's something you'd like to mention.
I just want to remind folks that, when I came out of college, or years ago, I had to worry in my household budget about housing and transportation and clothes on my back and food, and that was pretty much, what I needed to worry about. But if you think about coming out of college or getting started now, you've got those things, but you also have a technology budget, because you can't function very well in the United States without some level of technology, and it's not an insignificant monthly amount that you're concerned about to have that. And that has driven us to then have 2 incomes in the household, if it's at all possible, so that everybody has that technology advantage. And if we want to know what happened to our soft skills training at home, well, unfortunately, we don't have everybody at home anymore. We've got everybody working. And if it's a single parent, God bless you, you've really got your challenge on. So I think we have to go back to that collaborative village that helps with social skills and not be afraid of talking and telling and suggesting and reminding. Aunties, uncles, it's your job to step up and say something, because they need you.
If I can pile onto that, Penny, the other thing that they're graduating with is an unprecedented amount of student debt and credit card debt.
Yep.
That is really probably one of the greatest inhibitors to the American dream and the middle class. You know, the pathway had always been the dream of owning your own home, but they're spending so much of their money and their income that's not going into savings and not preparing themselves for home ownership, that is becoming further and further away from being accessible. So that is something that we have to address as a society. And I agree with the other parts as well. The demands are much higher. What we constantly hear and what we've talked about all morning is about skills and talent. And we have to address that. And in ways we're navigating to an uncertain future. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's people that can be self-learners. It can be people that are problem solvers and know how to access the information and synthesize it in a way that makes it applicable to practical use. Whether they're in a workplace, a large corporation, or starting their own businesses, those are skills that have to be adopted, but we've got to be able to double down on our education and our skills development.
Thanks, Larry.
I would say that you can't, I'm happy all the politicians left the room because I can say this. You cannot.
They're the ones that need to hear it.
Yeah, you cannot legislate middle class. You may be able to legislate a minimum wage, but the journey to middle class is in this room. It's people like Jim Allen stepping up and making the offers he has today. It's all the employers getting engaged. And as it relates to OIC, there's enough programs in place. If we all work in partnership, we can solve the problem. So I would encourage OIC to work in partnership with all of us, and we can move way more people into the middle class. So thank you, Newton.
Well, hopefully, I sent a note to our HR and purchasing staff, so hopefully they don't all quit on me based upon the commitment we made. But I'm sincere. I think it's something that's very, very important because I've been to too many of these type conferences. So we have to have quantifiable results, and we are 100% committed to do that within 90 days. My second comment would be, honesty and integrity, as I opened with this morning, the two most important qualities. If you do not have that as an employer, as an applicant, or as a vendor, there may be short-term gain, but there will be long-term hardship. And then patience, persistence, and being polite. Those things matter. Remember, baseball, you fail 70% of the time, and you're still considered to be great. So there's going to be a lot of times when the answer is going to be, sorry, it's not going to work out. Don't lose hope. Don't lose your vision and your dreams. And I think good things come to those who wait. In closing, I would probably get myself in big trouble. We are very, very fortunate for two of our leaders of the Seminole tribe have walked in. Councilman Cicero Osceola standing here. And Councilman Andrew Bowers. And I would just say that, we certainly had, hopefully, a lot of information this morning on the tribe, on Seminole Gaming and Hardrock, but make no mistake, that does not occur without the leadership of the Tribal Council and Mr. Shore. So I thank you for the opportunity to work for you guys, and we certainly appreciate everyone coming here this morning.
And thank you. And again, on behalf of OIC and all of us here, we really want to say thank you. This has been a great boost for us, a great help, and we appreciate everything that you've done for not only us, but for the community. So thank you.